What's happening? What's happening?
What's going on, man? How you doing? Sunday night service, baby.
I'm doing excellent, my brother. Welcome to Religiously Correct, everybody. And we are brought to you by, you got to pull your script up.
The African American Community Fund. The African American Community Fund, established in 2020 at the foundation of Appalachian, Ohio, supports Black-led and Black-serving organizations throughout the 32 counties of Appalachian, Ohio to elevate the quality of life and address disparities in African American communities. Check them out at www.appalachianohio.org, ACCF. All right,
man.
We are excited about them, man.
I'm very excited about them, man. You're doing great work in the whole region.
The whole
Not
region,
our community,
man.
but in the whole region. But we want everybody to tap in and welcome you to Sunday night service. This is your time to come and testify.
Testify.
And
can we have a testimony service?
Testimony service. Pastor Kidd, Elder Carter, so good to see some of our regulars and our faithful.
Dr. Glenn
faithful
Robinson,
few,
God bless
Reverend
you,
Dr.
man.
Glenn.
Yes.
This is a faithful Sunday night crowd. You know, you only get a certain crowd.
They ain't
everybody don't love the Lord that much.
Not that much.
They don't love him that much.
They like him a little bit.
They like him, but they don't love him that much. What's up, Mo? Good to see you. Good to see you.
Yes, sir.
Man, just glad to have another day. You know, it's starting to get cold again. We started to have one of those springtime in December days. What Grandma would call pneumonia weather.
Hey, this type of day that Bishop Paramore get up in the pulpit and he wouldn't even say anything. He just started off, "It's another day's journey," and I'm glad. The whole church go in.
Whole church go in.
Whole church go in.
I'm about to use that pretty soon. I'm about to use that one. That sounds like a good one. But we want to introduce our opening subject with what I like to call first things first.
First things first.
We want to kind of flesh out a little bit more how we kind of talk like our opening subject matter, Pastor Tatum. And so because we were off a week, I already knew what I wanted to talk about last week, but we decided to take time off.
Right.
Because first of all, we have to throw this before we get to first things first. First of all, we had a very, very trying long week. I had 4 funerals that week. I have another one tomorrow. But also, our bishop was in town.
Yeah.
Bishop Timothy J. Clark was here celebrating with our brother, Pastor Eric Brown, and his wife in their 10th anniversary at the historic York Avenue Church of God.
Yes,
and it was just a wonderful homecoming.
Phenomenal.
Bishop preached as always, did his thing, and just great to see him. And so we decided to take the night off, but we were glad to be back in the building. But in the meantime, we wanted to make sure we hit on the subject we missed last week. And so this subject, and our first things first subject, involves one of the most prominent gospel preachers and singers in the nation giving his take on the final arrangements and respect. It was 8:12 to be exact, Scott. You have to count the 90-second intro. You have to count the 90-second intro. So anyway, this is Bishop William Murphy III's take on Bishop Carlton Pearson and how he feels the church handled Bishop Carlton Pearson. Play the clip, Mike.
He was a general. Oh my God, he was a father. He was so much, and I'm sitting there on the front row at the funeral thinking to myself, where is everybody? How could the church, after all that this man has done, for all of the people that he's done it for, how could the church drop the ball again? The church was wrong for how we handled Carlton Pearson. We were wrong for how we mishandled this man of God. Because I don't see anywhere in the scripture where Jesus threw people away. Church, I need y'all to get this. We do not throw people away.
That was Bishop William Murphy III last week after the services, of which I believe there were 3 separate funeral services and viewings.
Yes, sir.
One of which was at Michael Todd's church, which is essentially a stadium,
right?
An arena that appeared to be full to me. Another large celebration service.
Yep.
in which there was an extended offering taking it up, I guess, owing to his Kojic roots, I propose. I don't know if that was what that was about. But Bishop William Murphy decided to go in on the church for mishandling Bishop Pearson.
Absolutely.
So Bishop Murphy believes that the church mistreated, mishandled, and abandoned, betrayed. He used words. We didn't play the whole clip. It's a 3-minute clip. You can look it up.
You can look it up.
Many of you probably watched it. He called it betrayal, throwing people away, taking what they could get from him, and then throwing him away after he put them on platforms. And that was wrong, as he said at the end. It was wrong for the church to throw Bishop away in that way.
Here,
what say ye?
I know you have a lot to say about it. I'm just going to put my little 2 cents in real quick. And my little 2 cents is, as much as I love Carlton Pearson and all he done for the church, and he did do great things, I would not take that away from him, but he threw the Bible away.
Wow.
If we're going to talk about people throwing stuff away, he threw the Bible away. He threw, context and content that we have shared and that we stand on for centuries away. And so I don't think, everybody was wrong for not standing up or coming to, and I don't know who all was there and who all wasn't. I wasn't. You weren't.
Right.
I know a million people who weren't. I mean, everybody, first of all, everybody can't make it to everything.
Correct.
Then there's just some things that, if we, truth be told, there are a lot of people who are still turned off about the way he mishandled the scripture. So,
And people who believed in the scriptures.
right.
And I'm glad what you said. Elder Carter, that was Bishop William Murphy III talking about his thoughts on how the church has mistreated Bishop Pearson in life and death because they didn't respect him and support him in life. And his, I guess, 3 funerals to not be connected to any denomination, any real church for 20 some years, have totally rejected. Sounds like you had a pretty good celebration of life to me.
Absolutely.
And by the way, if there were expenses associated with it, because there were offerings taken up, and apparently there was some situation of, I don't know if it was for his family or for expenses or whatever, but I'm sitting here like, first of all, nobody told y'all to do all this. If you want to do all this, there's an expense that goes with it. If that's what happened, if you didn't leave your family straight, that ain't got nothing to do with the church. If you didn't leave your family, well, but here's my thing. You said he abandoned the Bible.
Right.
He abandoned scriptures as we traditionally understand them. And you can't pretend like we don't have a traditional understanding and accepted understanding of the scriptures, because
Absolutely.
we do. He abandoned the scriptures and then wanted to keep the church on his own terms.
Absolutely.
Because the funny thing is, of all the points, of all the things, he never let go of all the things that made him famous and popular.
Absolutely.
He wanted to sing the same songs. Just the fact that he kept calling himself a bishop. Mm-hmm. Everything you're calling yourself, a bishop, and the shirts and all this, that's based off of Christian belief and doctrine and tradition that is attached to not necessarily the scriptures, but obviously the people who believe in the scriptures are the ones who wear that stuff and call themselves that.
Absolutely.
He did good. Thank you, Marlon. But he also spoke a heretic language. I do have a couple things to say. Number one, Bishop Pearson did not just stray or fall or make a mistake. He went through a rigorous, multi-decade-long campaign to prove the church and those people that he was affiliated with, his peers, his friends. And by the way, let me just throw this in there. And as many people as he put on, some folk put him on too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
People put him on too. Oral Roberts put him on too. Catherine Coleman put him on too. Some major players put him on so that he could put others on. So he didn't just come out of the ether and then introduce T.D. Jakes and all these other people to us out of Mars. But I'll say that he rejected and sought to make fools out of them, using some of the most rigorous and disrespectful and demeaning language that, truth be told, even a Louis Farrakhan and people who don't believe in Jesus Christ the way we do have not used that type of language.
I watched a clip of him talking about, people having to go to hell and things of this nature and things of that nature. And he said, I disown that God.
Yeah, he said that God is a monster.
He is a monster.
That's what he said.
That to me, in all of
What religion can you say that?
You can't.
They're like,
you can't.
all right.
And I absolutely love and respect Bishop Murray. I've been in Murphy, excuse me. Yeah. I've been in full gospel with him. I've met him. I've talked to him. He is a good guy. But this right here is a little far to the left.
Couple of issues that I came up with that's in the longer clip. He makes a mention of, I went to the funeral and there were a bunch of people with no names there. And to me, I'm sitting here like, wow. So you mean to tell me that these thousands of people that showed up to this service, these preachers who did come to honor him, you're promoting celebrity atmospheres in the church, and these people don't matter. They're insignificant. They don't matter, and all of that. And secondly, once again, Bishop Pearson was a force since the 70s. Mm-hmm. He had a major, I would say the meat of his public ministry as we know it through Azusa was like the 90s, where it was just killing everywhere you look. Right. That's the major, late 80s, 90s, probably about 10, 12 years. But he did spend the next almost 25 years completely rejecting all of that. Openly, publicly, books. He went to the Joint College of Bishops to make an argument. I've seen the video. It's online. Full video where he just argues down. And half of this stuff he just says, well, I just think. And funny because we look at black pastors sometimes are often looked at as not being theologically rigorous. Right. They asked him real theological questions and asked him, like, what exegetical method did you use to arrive at your conclusions? And he just started saying stuff like, I just think this, that, and the other. But I want to turn the page a little bit. And it's not to bash my brother and Bishop Murphy. We actually hosted him here some years ago with Night of Hope, which I'll be talking about. I got a question for Bishop Murray. You've probably had 8 albums out since Bishop turned. Did you invite Bishop to be on any of them?
Wow.
If the church threw Bishop Carlton Pearson away and you're mad about it, show me the conferences where you invited him to preach and you put a $10,000 check in his hand.
Absolutely.
Show me where you let him get up in your pulpit. Show me where you invited him to sing features on your albums. Show me all the pictures and all the selfies and all the times you visited his house or you invited him to your house or you traveled with him or went to be where he was. Not because you agree with him, but just because you love him.
Right.
And because you don't want to throw him away.
Absolutely.
And there are a few others who had some tough things to say. John P. Key said some things. Lexi had some things. Didn't none of them that I know of have him on any major features or put their necks on the line, just like Martin Luther King when he was living. Mm-hmm. And now you want a holiday for him when he's dead. And thank you for what you said, Bishop Pastor Tatum. I did read Clifford Frazier's, Bishop Clifford Frazier. You can look it up. He wrote a rebuttal to that. And he asked a question. I will mimic his question. What more is the church supposed to do with a person that openly rejects the gospel? And he made this point. Most of the preachers that we're saying abandon him, at first, they were there for him. They did step in and try to pay his mortgage and help him keep his house and all of that stuff. And he said this phrase, he said, and they did far more than the scriptures prescribe that we do for someone who turns against the gospel.
And all those people who were there are probably the people who he actually was still influencing, still loved him.
They're the ones that wanted to come.
This is a very, here, if I could just give a funny analogy.
Right.
This is Al Bundy still talking about high school football.
Right. 4 touchdowns and 1 state championship.
Ain't none of those people from that high school coming to his funeral. Maybe a couple, you know what I'm saying? But not. Most of the people is Peggy, whatever the other kids' names was. But
who was the fine one?
That dog might show up.
The dog might show up.
That's who's coming.
Exactly.
Who you're affiliated with now.
He chose his affiliation.
Absolutely.
And so I just want to end with this. This is where I have paused, where every time someone does something legitimately wrong, stands on their wrong, wallows in their wrong, and people say, well, y'all threw them away. No, they made a choice to walk away.
Walk away.
All of you have had family members, friends who chose a path. And if they go out, throw everything they have away, their job, their marriage, they give them something. Maybe it is sickness. Maybe it is. It still has something more to do with them than it does with you. They still chose a path and they went that way.
And let's
and we got to stop trying to abuse the concept of grace and shame one another.
And stop glorifying those who did not believe or stand on the word of God. Ivy Hillier said this. Dr. Ivy Hillier said, these people never wanted to go to church, never loved church, never talked about church, wouldn't step into church when they were alive. Then y'all dragged them into church to give them a church funeral. You are disrespecting and taking advantage of a dead person.
Exactly. I agree.
I have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
I know the overall story, but I don't know the details of when Carlton Pearson made that flip.
It was around the millennium. It was around 2000.
So what sparked that? What happened? What did he experience?
He claimed
his mind.
I'm glad you asked. He claimed, first of all, he had a family member who died that wasn't in the Lord, and he couldn't fathom the idea that they were in hell.
Okay.
Then it went beyond his disbelief in hell. He started to talk about God and suffering, and why would God make people suffer? And he saw things like people starving in Africa, wars, famine, disease, all of that stuff. And literally, what kind of God would do this? Y'all's image of God is wrong if you think, which I think he misrepresented what we preach. I don't think people preach like, well, if you live in Africa and you just ain't got the grace of God. Nobody was saying that. Right. But life, unfortunately, is just a huge ball, a mixture of good and bad, and people in good positions and people in bad positions. And if you live in America, probably got a better chance of being in a good position. If you live in Africa, probably got a chance of being in a bad position. But he was just painting the church and maybe that had as much to do with how much he had embraced the health and wealth gospel.
Okay.
Of if you love God, you'll be blessed. And well, what about those people over there? Well, that was a bad gospel in the first place.
It was.
But you believed in it so much that now you look at somebody suffering, wondering what kind of God would do that. So that he admits in his own book became the basis of how he starts to question not just hell. Because I always ask myself, does it make you unsaved to struggle with certain tenets in the Bible that don't have anything to do with the sacrificial work of Jesus Christ and the belief of, salvation or damnation? Like I said, I've always had questions about the rapture and what we always believe and teach. Do I have to believe in this or that? But I think that he started questioning so many core Christian doctrines, and he stopped referring to himself as a Christian.
Gotcha.
He called himself an inclusionist, a spiritualist. What do you call it? Mindful something. And opening up portals and pathways and all this other stuff. So it was a litany of beliefs he had strayed from.
Okay.
Not just one.
And I know we got to move on. I totally agree with Carletta Williams, the Sister Williams, the choices you make. Mm-hmm. And you just wrote
the choices you make create the
circumstances you are in. And that is the exact, nobody is going to be up in heaven talking about y'all just made me come up here. I didn't want to be here in the first place.
Right.
I was good doing what I was doing. No, you make a choice, and the choice you make is dependent to be absent from the body. So
present with the Lord. I believe it, and I appreciate it. And so, I'm still going to keep playing them Carlton Pearson records.
Amen. Them old sermons still hit.
Some of them still hit. But here's the last thing I'll say in 5 seconds. If anything, these peers, especially these theologians, these bishops, they need to be questioning if he ever believed this stuff in the first place.
Right.
Because maybe he was just feeding off the same industry they claim made them all famous. Mm-hmm. And when he had a problem with it, he tried to switch gears, and maybe he thought he'd be ahead of the curve, and the investment didn't work out for him. So again, the choices you make create the circumstances you are in. Let's lighten the load a little bit. It's time for Meme of the Week.
Meme of the Week. Meme of the Week.
Welcome to Religiously Incorrect, ladies and gentlemen.
Meme of the Week. Meme of the Week.
Thank you. Send us your memes of the week.
Meme of the Week. Meme of the Week.
We are, these are all jokes. We are just playing.
Well, speaking of hell, here's our meme for the day, and I'm going to have to read it to you, but trust me, it will all be worth it. Let's go. Nigerian prophet Odumaji shows off the belt he won after defeating Satan in an international spiritual warfare championship. According to the prophet, he went alone to hell and fought Satan behind closed doors. So leave it up there. So this prophet claimed, and maybe it's a joke, I don't think so, because there's so many wild claims that come from Africa. He claimed that he defeated Satan in the International Spiritual Warfare Championship. This was the literal hell in a cell.
So how did he get in hell? That's my question. How did he get to?
Vince McMahon paid for his plane ticket.
Did he like GPS hell? It was like,
no.
I'm putting hell in GPS.
WWE booked hell for a match. Vince McMahon paid for a plane ticket.
How'd you get to hell, bro?
And according to the prophet, he won. But here's what I love is the belt.
He came back with a belt,
He
bro.
came back.
Right.
With the championship belt.
He has proof that he won. So
The belt ain't burnt up.
No.
It don't smell like smoke.
This is the International Spiritual Warfare Championship. So were they in an actual ring? Like I said, they in Africa. He's not joking. This guy said, "What you gonna do?" Did anybody interfere with the match? Did Macho run down and give it an elbow drop? You know. But the stories people tell. Now this is the same country and continent that has produced the guy that wanted to like baptize people with alligators.
Lee asked who had the belt before him.
Satan had it. Satan was the spiritual warfare champion until he won it.
I mean, this literally puts this guy up, because remember, Jesus went to hell and threw off powers and threw off principalities.
Oh, he got with some keys.
Oh yeah, he got with some keys. This guy
dude
got a
whole belt.
He got a belt.
Glenn said, "Who was the ref?" Adolf Hitler was the guest referee.
Tiffany said the belt was made in China.
But he has a belt. So what are you gonna do? Who are you to dispute this man? Who are you to dispute? Now, I guess my extra question is like, well, who will he be defending his title against?
Right, who going to fight now?
Who's Carlton
The Antichrist.
Carlton Pearson.
The dragon.
The beast with 7 horns. I mean,
he gonna do a triathlon. He gonna swim up the lake of fire.
did he pin the devil? Did he win by disqualification?
No, he knocked him. Somebody was like, "You got knocked."
Let's look at that picture one more time.
Let's look at that picture one more time.
He's serious. Look at it.
Yeah, he's got a whole crew. He's got a belt. I wish I could zoom in on the belt.
Floyd Mayweather looking.
Foo Mayweather.
He's like Sugar Ray Leonard.
Well, he went alone to hell.
He got his posse with him.
And they fought behind closed doors.
Right, where nobody else
could see this.
It wasn't pay-per-view. It wasn't on Showtime.
Selling the belt. It'll be on eBay.
Where Don King at?
Listen, he would have promoted this.
He'd have promoted it.
He'd promote anything.
He probably calling him right now.
Exactly.
It's gonna be another fight in Africa.
Right.
Magilla and Gorilla. However you call that.
Thriller in Manila.
Thriller in Manila.
He said McGill.
McGill and Magrilla.
Who was that? Wasn't that Curtis Blow?
Right, McGill and Gorilla.
I thought that was a cartoon.
That ain't nothing but the Intercontinental belt. Right, that was an old WCW belt they threw away. Well, you know, that was one of my favorites, and I've been wanting to show that for several weeks now.
That is hilarious.
So get ready to see a bunch of wrestling memes in your feed all week long, because Facebook is probably on it.
Right.
Well, thank you all. If you have a meme of the week, you can always send it to our email at religiouslyincorrectpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to see your funniest. There's a good chance we already saw it, but hey, send it to us anyway, and we'll see if we can use it. So we want to thank our sponsors for supporting us, beginning with Phillips Care Lawn Services. It's about that time. The weather has changed. Snow will be falling and need to be plowed and salted and all of that. So check out my man Fernando at Phillips Care. I've said 1,000 memes and might never get picked.
Who was that?
Mo. Jason said, "Do you smell what the prophet is cooking?" This is wrong. Okay.
Wow.
I don't know what driveways start at, but give Phillips Care a call at 330-219-7916. Or while you're at it, check out Phillips Care Cleaning Service. I want to give a personal testimonial. Phillips Care Cleaning Services came and did our carpets at our house for the holidays.
Okay.
We were not allowed to put the tree up until the carpet got cleaned. And Phillips Care came and did a phenomenal job cleaning our carpets. And if you know me, I have 3 kids with a bunch of friends and nieces and nephews. And I'm not ashamed to say them carpets were pretty rank. And they did a phenomenal job in bringing the color back and cleaning that out. So I want you to go out and get the great service of Phillips Care, not just carpet cleaning, floor cleaning, basic cleaning, deep cleaning, move in, move out, maintenance, upgrades to your home. They can do it all. Don't waste your time. Let them do it. 330-219-7916, and look them up on Facebook at Phillips Care LLC.
All right, and we are also brought to you by Action, the Alliance for Congregational Transformation, influencing our neighborhoods. Listen, we are super excited this year, y'all. We are super excited. Why? Because we have just made aware of our new board this year, and starting off with our new board, we have with us none other than the new president of Action, Pastor Todd Johnson. Can y'all give him a hand? Amen.
A cyber hand. What, we in church?
A cyber hand.
A cyber hand.
We also have Sister Tina, who is going to be the vice president. We also have Pastor Kidd, who's coming back with us to be the clergy chair, and Minister Oliver from Mount Calvary, who is going to be the other chair, and Sister Apostle Sonia Davenport, who is going to be our not secretary. What's that called?
I don't know what treasurer.
Treasurer, amen.
She'll be stealing all the money.
So listen, we are excited that what Action is doing. We are doing great things in our neighborhood, and we're asking you, if you want to get involved this year, particularly if you want to get involved in doing some great work in the community, please give me a call at 330-766-8476 and watch us. Come grow with us as we get ready to go into this new year, hitting these streets and doing what we need to do to change our community.
I love it. I love it. Well, Pastor Jeff, today's subject is called After Much Prayer.
After Much Prayer.
And it's so fitting that Pastor Les McIntosh, our buddy from Maryland.
Yes.
He just hit my camera, bro. No, man, no. You gonna fix this?
I'm gonna look good. I'm gonna look good.
You weren't supposed to say nothing out loud,
we ain't
man.
gonna say nothing. But anyway, he congratulates Pastor Jeff Stanford on his appointment as the newly elected pastor-elect of the Second Baptist Church of Steubenville, Second Baptist Church, the Ville.
The Ville.
You already have a cool nickname for your church. Second Baptist Church, the Ville, Steubenville, Ohio. And I'm so proud of my brother and my friend. We made mention of it last show 2 weeks ago, and we promised that we would talk about it more in depth. The transition is complete as far as transitioning from the church in which he had served right here in the city of Warren at Progressive Baptist. And now you have moved and when I say moved, you have moved your ministry.
Right.
And your assignment. Yeah, please don't say move. We know we're being watched. You moved your ministry assignment to Steubenville, Ohio, and I want everybody to give it up for Pastor Jeff and give congratulations to him with your cyber claps, your cyber love. It's a wonderful church. Right. It looks like it to be a wonderful fellowship and congregation. And we use that phrase, after much prayer, because that must be like the mandatory opening 3 words of any church transition that occurs. And I think it would be a good time, because I have been through a pastoral transition, leaving my home church where I pastored for 3 years and lived my whole entire life under my father at Agape, to come to Second, where I've been for 8.5 years now. And you have made 2 transitions in your life. I mean, actually a few more, but I just want to talk about what that entails and what it involves and what issues arise in the process.
Let me start off by saying that is fighting the devil. That's
that is
hell.
fighting the devil.
that is a
if you
fight.
want to be in an international fight with the devil,
say those 3 words.
After much prayer. After much prayer.
In front of your congregation, say those 3 words.
Those faces, boy, they'll change quick. So I want to start off by kind of interviewing you a little bit, because this is not your first transition.
Absolutely.
And you have been on a ministry journey that has taken you from assuming the pastorate of a church of a dear friend and peer that you served under, and he decided to transition away, and you started serving there. And then from there, you spent some time with us at Agape on our pastoral team, and we had more modern pastoral,
absolutely,
model, if you would. And then you were called to Beulah Baptist Church in Youngstown, and then Progressive Baptist in Warren. So I guess I'll start by asking you, what are some of the common themes or experiences that arise in any transition that you can say were basically the same as far as maybe just how you felt, affection for the people, or, you know, just the anxiety or that in-between phase of, you know, decision making? Like, are there any commonalities, anything you can point to that seems to be like, here we go again?
I think one of the most common threads that is there is that, you know, regardless of the period of time you're there, you grow to love these people. You grow to love them. They grow to love you. There is there's some sort of camaraderie there. There is, you know, there is a mutual respect. And when it's time to make that transition, it becomes very difficult. You know, even as far as this week went, many of you, you know, we said it, we talked about it, a lot of people knew, but I waited till last night
to put up
I waited to the very last minute. Second have been saying it. They have been talking about, you know, but I waited to because even though I'm gone, you know, I was almost like, I don't want to add insult to injury.
And that's just, even though it's what you just said about the announcement, how do you celebrate and mourn at the same time, knowing that there's a mourning of sorts? Even some are really, really great situations. Some are a little shakier situations, but there's still affection, like you said. There's still love. There's still commitment, you know. And like you said, the Lord, especially in this social media age, the tension surrounding when and where and how to make announcements, how to treat them. Make sure you say the right words, acknowledge things the right way. You don't want to come off as gloating, like, you know, you didn't put up an announcement like with the theme from the Jeffersons, like moving on to these, you know what I mean? Nothing like that, or anything to blow back or throw shade at anybody, anything like that. But a church is celebrating.
Right.
They have been without a pastor. They have been seeking and searching for a pastor. And then the church and the community is mourning a little bit because they no longer have their pastor. And then you're in between that, wanting to serve both appropriately.
Right.
And so I definitely can relate to that. Like you said, they were putting it out.
Right.
While at the same time, you're sort of...
and I guess the good thing is that, you know, those of you who don't know, the church that I currently serve is about an hour and a half away. So there's really no overlap. There's not a whole lot of overlap. So I was able to allow them to celebrate without, you know, when you're in the same city and, you know, when you're going right around the corner. Well, for you, it was literally 2 blocks away.
I tell you what, that whole experience for me, because I wasn't raised in an atmosphere where pastoral transitions were a norm, and I didn't know pastors who were like a pastor here and then a pastor there and then a pastor there, you know, going through it, you know, older, I met some people, but going through it, probably the first in my circle to go through it. My dad never went through that. You know, our previous pastor never went through that, he passed away. In the same town, Doc, what you just said about having some distance and some space where people don't really know each other in the same town, where it was literally ladies under the hairdryer. Like, your pastor coming to my church. You know, we about to have your pastor.
Right.
Like, yo, you know what I mean? Like, at the same, you know what I mean? Like, and then I come and I got to hear about it later, and people are hurt. They know each other. That's it. But what I said that to say it, I realized why pastors move on and move away when they move on, if they can.
The theme of discretion, because you have to understand that when any pastor is about to make this transition, first of all, he has to obviously go through this process of saying, I want to become another pastor. And so because you don't know what's going to happen. And
that's such a weird type.
It is.
Who asks who first?
Right.
Who approaches who first? And then the questions of who after the fact. Were you out there seeking something?
Right.
You know, were they up here trying to snatch you away? Did somebody sneak in our church? Or
here's the sad thing. Church is the only place that you're not supposed to, for lack of better words, better yourself.
Yeah, in a way, you're absolutely right. Or
You know, nobody gets upset if a 20-year employee of McDonald's gets hired at GM.
right.
Nobody's upset. Matter of fact, there's all congratulations. Even the people at McDonald's is like,
Right.
congratulations.
They're like, bro, can you drop me an app? They're like, yo, can you drop me an app? Can you get me in this point? I'm tired of smelling like grease. Yeah, but you're right. It is not just bettering, but we just don't acknowledge in this space that transitions are a part of life because it's so personal. It's just a mixture of personal relationship, spiritual discernment, leading, sensitivity, and then what I said earlier a little bit about like the celebrity, big, small, or we're not good enough for you or big enough for you anymore or whatever, or, you know, we're not, whatever the case might be. Because some changes are not always from small to bigger.
Right. Absolutely.
You know, it's not always, you know, a more money change or whatever you want to call that. But what, like you said, we're on a journey, for lack of a better term, that is not always ascending in the traditional corporate sense. It's not always some I'm on my way to a raise and da 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 da, but it is just an idea of following God wherever he leads. And if he leads you to be the pastor of the same church for 50 years, then so be it.
Amen.
If he leads you to be the pastor of 3 churches in 40 years, then so be it. You know, leads you to be the pastor of 5 churches in 15 years. I don't say 5 to 15 years, but, you know, 2 churches or 3 churches in 15 years, then so be it. But we're so lack of accepting that because I think people take things so personal and so spiritual.
And I think, you know, one of the things, and I'm not saying that all churches should be like this, but one of the things I almost envy about especially the AME church is the appointments. Is that, you know, you
don't have a huge choice.
Yeah, you don't have a choice. And so, you know, you could be at 20 church, you know, they appoint you to where your next assignment, and I don't know exactly the whole.
But I think you're allowed to express your desire of where you'd like to stay, and the church can too. And then I think that plays some part in it too. More money and change helps too. Yeah, you're correct. It does help. I'm sure it does. But you're right. There are some churches that are more appointing.
Right.
You're assigned somewhere. You're moved along. In some other churches, like our Baptist context, which are famous or infamously, depending on how you see it, autonomous. Mm-hmm. You know, both the congregation and the pastor at any given time can decide it's time for change.
Right.
Whatever that might mean. Now, I'll be honest. I mean, I don't think it escapes any of us in the year 2023, in the year of our Lord, that we've seen enough horror stories of men and women that have gone before us.
Yeah. That
some of us don't think, I need to mind the spirit, the journey that our church is on, how I am felt about, because at some point, rarely do people just last a very long time in one place and thrive.
Right.
And thrive. Now, there are some folks that are just resigned and stick around each other and ain't doing jack squat for the last 30 years of this dude's pastorate, but they just hang with each other for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. But, you know, rarely are you thriving 30, 40 years down the line, like thriving, and able to do things graciously. And unfortunately, humans are humans. We had Bishop Paramore on to talk about him a while back, and he said some of the folk that chose you and don't want you ain't even saved themselves. And some have the thought that get out before I get put out.
Well,
on my own terms. And I'm into 11 years of pastoring, you start to hear that advice from older preachers, and some of them got.
Oh, yeah.
Some of them got, thought they was gonna ride this sucker out, and they're like, young brother, watch your back. Oh, you know what I mean? They giving you all that kind of stuff. And you, just like marriage, just like a career, just like raising kids, you got this delusion when you come into it. Not me.
Right.
That Jesus is gonna lead me, and we love each other. You know, you go do all that, and then life smacks you in the face. You know, and you're right, Willoughby, the AME church may appoint you, but the stewards, they'll put you out and tell you, and they'll say, send us another one.
Send us
another one. And so it doesn't, and I want to be very clear, it doesn't become a game of, you know, chicken. You know what I mean? It's not like a game of chicken, like I'm just trying to make sure I get mine before y'all cut me off at the, but you can't pretend. It's not like we don't have all these tragic stories around us. You can't pretend. Nobody can pretend. The pastors can't pretend. The churches can't pretend that we don't know what happens when things go sour.
And sometimes it's like Daniel, and the handwriting is just on the wall.
Right.
And you have to be spiritual enough to know that, you know, me and this organization are just not it's nothing against the organization nor nothing against myself. We're just not a good fit. And I've seen it happen several times. I've seen it happen several times where, you know, just
it's a mutual separation.
Yeah, it's a mutual separation. It's just and that doesn't make the pain hurt any less, but it's just a reality that, you know, some people just don't fit in that place. You know, maybe the church is too traditional. Maybe you're too forward thinking. Maybe you're too traditional and the church is too forward thinking.
Correct.
You know,
maybe you emphasize different ministries or focuses. What should be the most important thing? You have a very evangelistic minister, might be with a very introverted church that just prefers to do more traditional functions that don't necessarily bring people in.
And I would suggest, after going through all the situations that I've been through, I would suggest to any minister, any pastor, anybody going in that interview, make sure that you guys are on the same page.
And but you know, the trouble with that though, it's like a honeymoon, man. It's like dating somebody. Of course you're on the same page the first 6 months or a year. You know, of course you're on the same page. Ask any church, do they want to grow?
Right.
Do they want more people, new people, young people, whatever you want to say? Just say that. Yes. Ask anybody, do you want, you know, updated music, or do you want to enhance worship in some way? You might have different visions on how it should go about, but the answer is going to be yes. You know, ask any person if you'd like to learn new concepts or study new things, or, you know, everybody's talking the same. And the funny thing is, that's why the church has to stop being so cliched and saying stuff because it sounds good, and making sure it's actually good for you.
Right.
If you're not really trying to do a new thing, if you're not really trying to be out the box, if you're not really trying to not do church as usual, if you really don't want to deal with a bunch of young folk and street folk, stop saying it because it sounds good.
Right.
Stop saying it because it sounds good. Because you just might get a preacher who can bring in a bunch of street folk named Todd Johnson and end up with a church full of people that were you know, that's so mixed up and it's beautiful to me, but to somebody else it might be uncomfortable.
Right.
You know what I mean? Whatever, you know, modern worship. Well, we want that modern. I want what I see on TV with the modern worship, until you realize what that entails. And that they really don't.
The cost of it.
And the cost of it. But I'm just saying, like that older person who, let's say they do want to hear more modern this, that, and the other. They like what they see on the Kirk Franklin song, the Maverick City. Okay, first of all, you might like observing it and enjoying it in small bits and pieces in your car or in clips on YouTube. But the whole atmosphere that creates that, you might not be down for that. You might not be down for a 90-minute worship service of just music when you were just doing devotions, a choir selection, you know, announcements, a choir selection, and a sermon, and now all the flowing and you got a guy with a guitar up there flowing from song to song and making up songs of the Lord off his heart and stuff. Well, that's where that comes from. That little 5 minutes you get, and it came from all this extra stuff that goes on. Do you really want that?
Right.
You know, do you want to be asked to do the stuff?
Do you know how many times after you left Agape, I got phone calls because of how close you and I were? Mm-hmm. Well, you know, why would he go to someplace and I had to. Todd is actually a little more traditional than you guys think.
Right.
This was not his. He's not downsizing. You know, This is actually who he is.
Yeah.
You know, maybe you saw the church and you saw how it was, but he always preached a little more traditional, and more, you know, slightly slower on the front end. But and don't get me wrong, he can dance and hoop with the rest of them, but
not even dance and hoop like the moderns, because we were doing it all. But you know, everyone has to choose a path for them, including the minister. What is my path going to be? And it's funny because my path is not the path technically of my father or the church I was raised in.
Right.
I somehow got to be God's grace. That's why you have to trust that God is really doing what he's doing. To go from what is typically been seen as a non-traditional kind of out-the-box church, we were very community-oriented, very ragtag sometimes in a good way. Like, this is a church for everybody that don't do traditional churches.
Right.
Only for the pastor to leave and go to one of them traditional churches. That, you know, but in a good way, because I found myself seeing the value of institution, seeing the value of tradition in its proper place. I'm not saying I'm just traditional to be traditional, in its proper place. And seeing that the God, I really had this feeling in my heart, God doesn't want our pillar and institutional churches to fail just because a few folk don't like tradition. You know, and somebody sent 2 people, and it always made me laugh when people did ask, and I get a lot of what you said when I transitioned from agape to second. Well, why would you go there? And they would kind of list off the problems that you normally associate with traditional churches, Baptist churches. Well, they fight over there. You know, they carnal. They just kind of do what they want. You know, or they try to run the past. You know, all, just different things that are said. They don't worship like we do. And then, first of all, you get a better context of what all this stuff really means. Right. What is worship really? Is it really laying on the floor listening to soft chords for 3 hours? Can it not be a hymn? Can it not be a choir selection? Have we decided that just can't be worship? But also, I mean, I said to that person's point, and not at all to diminish or disrespect the church I came to serve, but I said, well, if that's the dark place you say it is, if that is full of all these issues you say that exist, then what better minister to go than someone who has been taught in an atmosphere of peace where there wasn't fighting and fussing, than somebody who has a more balanced view of worship, if your view, which by the way, most times your view of these other churches are wrong. Because you don't go there. Right, you don't go there. You just listen to stories that people told, usually some bitter person or somebody who just loves to go share mess. And now you make this, so now you wonder, why would they go there? Or why are you leaving us for them? Bishop Clark told a funny story that my own great aunt said when he left York Ave and went down to First Church, was in a church probably not much bigger than Progressive. Or any of our regular Baptist churches, the Trinity, or, you know, any of our churches. And it was not in great shape. Mm-hmm. And they took a bus down to his installation service. And he got on the bus to say goodbye to them as they were headed back to Warren, to thank them for coming, to show his love, to just say goodbye. And I think it might have been Naomi. I think it was my great aunt Naomi, my father's aunt Naomi. She said, Pastor, I can't believe you're leaving us for this dump. Wow. Because it wasn't. Wow. And I don't know if the word was dump, but it was, I can't believe you're leaving us for this. Because York had a newer church at the time. Right, absolutely. York was a newer church. They had just built a balcony. It was bustling out. And he felt called. And by the way, the Columbus of 1977, 81, 82, was not the Columbus of today. Right. It was called Slow Lump. They would call it Slow Lumbus, he said one time. So, but it's funny because people don't understand you really are on a journey. Now, let's talk about this part. And I'm not talking about you, but in general, where some of this comes from. There are some pastors and churches who treat pastoral assignments so flippantly. Pastors who are just looking for the next come up. Mm-hmm. Churches who are treating the pastorate like a bargaining chip, mm-hmm. and a power grab, and, you know, let's get someone we can control, or let's let them know how it's going to be when this guy comes in, and we're going to tell him what it's going, you know, that kind of thing. And there are people, and we know them, who would, for $50 more, drop their congregation on a dime. And there are congregations that would drop their preacher over changing a bulletin. Oh, yeah. You know, this is the world we live in. And while we're here talking about these heartfelt decisions and following, leading the God's Spirit, there are so many churches, and some of y'all have been a part of it, and you know you have, of these dumb basement, back room, home conversations. And a lot of it is based in pettiness, conjecture, personality difference. And you want to see why these churches got 30, 40 preachers' names on and pictures on the wall in 20 years? You know, people say something, why can't we keep a pastor? I don't know, buy some mirrors. I mean, what? I mean, everybody can't be wrong. Let me flip it and throw it back to you. Just like we say, if you've been to 5 churches in 5 years, mm-hmm. all them churches can't be wrong. I would say that if you keep cycling through preachers, all them preachers can't be wrong. Right. Oh my God. All them preachers can't be wrong. Something's got to be, maybe y'all need a little heart surgery. You know? So, Pastor Jeff, I want to ask you, since I asked you what was the same, I want to ask you what was different What was different, or can you mark out a few differences from your transitions from, for instance, what was it, Living Word Sanctuary to Agape? And of course, that's more of a just joining a staff kind of situation, but then Agape to Beulah the Progressive. And there was a gap in there that had something to do with our experience at Agape.
We ain't going to talk about that. We're going to leave that.
Yes, Greg, I did say buy some mirrors. But that's when a transition goes wrong, though.
Absolutely.
Quite frankly. But talk about what was different.
I think the biggest difference in most of them is the way you're received when you get there, is the way you're received. And, I take nothing from anybody else, any other church. Every church does things different. But this reception, and I remember when you first got to Second. I remember you had that meet and greet.
Oh yeah, the tailgate meet and greet.
That was so
wasn't that fun?
Phenomenal. Yeah. That was like phenomenal. And I'm like, man, I would love, but this today
feels like that vibe.
Is that, not just me, but my family, bringing my wife flowers on the first day. You know what I mean? Love it, calling her, FaceTiming her, trying to make sure she and the family is, you know what I mean? Today one of the ladies after church was like, how my son is, Grayson is. She's like, I told Grayson, run. And he took off around and say, because my son will run anywhere. That's his thing. Right, that's his right. But they know already, they have literally tried to make everything, this transition is less pain. I walk up to my office today and, the pit, my name is on the door and there's a big Cleveland Browns mat. Because they know.
I won't be.
But they know.
Go ahead and take me off the program of your installation, by the way.
I was about to say something about the sweatshirt.
Right.
But they know, you know what I mean? And so just to have...
He got them off the rack wrinkles in it, by the way, if you notice. Y'all look real close.
Wait. Now this is the shirt I won at your party.
You won at my party?
This is the shirt I won at your party.
To be a blessing to you. I'm glad we were a blessing.
But I think that, that is the biggest difference for me in all the places I've been to is a reception. The first place I was at, they were still in love with their old pastor.
Wow.
And that's just a reality.
I get it.
They were, in that place, never really transpired too much. When I went to Beulah was completely different. I mean, it was difficult for me. It was difficult for my wife because the old first lady was still there. The pastor had passed away.
But the lady first lady, that's always a complication.
It was a huge, but she was very gracious and loving to my wife.
Well, how would you feel having the pastor and the first lady still there? Because that's what I was like, would y'all leave?
Please, in a hurry.
I'm talking to my own parents. Will y'all leave? But that creates awkwardness.
It does create.
So who was the first lady and second lady? Did y'all have like first lady or 1.5 lady or
she actually gets
1.5 lady?
She actually stood up and said she is the new first lady.
She said it?
But that didn't stop them from calling her first lady.
Yeah,
they still called her first lady.
Oh, by the way, let's give a shout out. Patty Elkins of Personalized Possessions made that shirt. A member of Second Baptist, by the way, made that shirt, Personalized Possessions, giving you a free shout out, and we didn't even charge you for sponsor space, but I'll send you a form if you want to be a sponsor.
Plug.
But that makes a huge difference. That makes
a huge difference. And then Progressive was very welcoming. They were, and I still absolutely love them. But it's just I think the way the church receives you has a lot to do with it. And so here's a question I want to throw out because you just brought it up, having your parents there, your mother, your dad, first lady, and pastor. It wasn't just the church that you were leaving. It was actually leaving home again.
Correct.
It was leaving mom and dad again. It was moving out on your own again.
I felt like I lived at Agape more than I lived in my parents' home because we had changed homes. I had gone away to college. I had come home. I had bought my own house. I had gotten married. I'd done everything. The only thing I'd never changed in my life for 33 years, was the church I attended. It was the only thing I'd never changed in 33 years. And that made it difficult. And I don't think people understood how difficult it was. I still to this day, honestly, in pro-trans, I'm somewhat offended and hurt that people don't accept or understand or want to understand the gravity of such a decision. You don't. First of all, when a pastor's son takes over for their father,
Oh my God.
you're locked in for life. And not like in some prison situation, but it's just like, I'm not like stuck, but it's just like, what greater honor could you ever have to take over for your parents? But the other thing is just the familiarity. I've never known anything other than agape. And I knew agape like the back of my hand and still do. Everything about the history of our church, now that the church is a little older, going on 40 years or so, 40 years this year, I'm 41, we literally grew up together. I know people that many of the members there do not know and will never meet.
Right.
I remember the house meetings before we had a first church when I was a child. I remember moving into the first church on Hoyt. I remember going to the school. I knew every inch of every one of those buildings and still do. You know what I mean? And I can walk in TCAP without getting emotional sometimes when I go into the, because one day they're going to tear that sucker down. And I'll be like, this is where I preached my first sermon when I was 19 years old. Wow. Played my first keyboard. Everything I know how to do, everything I am came from there. Everything. We're leading worship. There's not an aspect, even growing into this ministry, international, social media, all that kind of stuff. That all started, there, doing it for my dad and wanting to make my dad's church, my home church, the very best place it could ever be. And the crazy thing was, it became that. It really became as big as it ever had been in the time I was blessed to pastor there, and all the dreams that we've had and all the outreach that we wanted to do. And then God to say, all right,
time to move on.
That's insane. I'm in a new church. We got a choir. We bang in. We got, everything that you would want. I'm getting out there, if that's what you want to call it. Little name, whatever. But I guess that's the danger, because you get a little name. Right. And people are like,
what's
like to talk to you. What's up, Big Mike?
So, all right, you guys, God calls you to another ministry. Mm-hmm. And you go to this place for the first time. What are some of the things that you look for, or that you're looking at, or that you're observing while you're making this decision? Making the decision
after it's already been made.
Making the decision.
Well, for me, I was real green to the process. I'd never been, nor had I ever known anyone who had to go through a pastoral transition process and didn't even know who to ask or talk to about it that would have any relation to me. Very older, if anybody, much older people like a Doc Hearns. But how is being called to a church in 1980 something the same as being called to a church in 2015? It's just world away. But I would definitely say, first of all, in my heart, I knew I had a journal that I was keeping. And that journal, if you ever want to sound super spiritual, God showed me I'd be the pastor of Second Baptist. I already knew it. And I told y'all the story about my daughter, who pointed out the picture. I was preaching there for once in a while, 8 a.m. services, and sometimes for Pastor Hearns, like youth days. Yeah. And Lundy would come with me. She was about 3 years old, 4 years old, preschool to kindergarten age. And we came out to church one day. After I preached, we were headed back to Agape. And she looked up and said, who are all those guys on the wall? And I said, those are all the pastors, the past pastors. She says, why isn't your picture up there? Mm. And I said, I'm not the pastor. I've never been the pastor. I'm not the pastor. She said, I think your picture should be up there.
Wow.
And I said, do you? And so I'm like engaging her like I do with kids. I'm like, so what do you think? I said, I think your picture's going to be up there. Yeah. I said, okay. And so I always blame London for this mess that I'm in now. She said it. I know it's kid just talking. Right, Daddy, why ain't your picture up there? But things have meaning. But the decision making was, do I really want this? And honestly, I was still filled a little bit with the horror stories, to be honest, of the Baptist church and the big Second Baptist church. And a lot of it was the negative things that people chose to promote. And people will that's why I'm such a defender of the church, of man, just watch how things are portrayed and pushed, because it's like everything else. Like, why does negativity sell? You know, it's always this. Remember that one time they had a big argument and then this happened and that happened? They like forget all the love, all the laughter, all the good days, all the people baptized, all the folks married, all the babies blessed, all the church picnics. They act like none of that exists, and all that happened is one time somebody showed up to a meeting and cussed at the pastor.
Right.
In 100-year history.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm sure a lot of things did happen. And then I had to find out, because funny, I'm coming from a church that was barely 30 years old, was basically a young church at an old church. And I had to gain a new perspective which my church found out, my home church, that if you live a little longer, all these issues you were able to talk about other churches going through, you're going to have some of them.
Absolutely.
You're going to have some. And they did. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but you just do. You know, keep on living, baby, is what they say. Mm-hmm. But thank you for saying it, because it was rough. It was rough. Didn't know exactly how to preach, what to preach, you know, how hard to hit it. You know, how much to try to introduce change, how to talk about change. I was still fairly immature. They were very gracious to me, and I have to give them to my family. And I wouldn't be saying and doing, and the person that maybe many of you come to see, if they didn't put up with me and give me the space to be me. Because I was making, and then there's some changes we were just making, and I was like, all right, I hope I don't get put out over this. We got to put some speakers up.
It's just, it is a lot more gracious when you're transitioning to one of the oldest historical, largest churches in the city. That
Not necessarily, though.
It does put a little,
because they can put you out quick, Doc. That means Grover had a letter in his pocket. Grover had a letter in his pocket for like a year. I would see him. I start saying something crazy. He started tapping his chest. Keep talking, Negro. I got something for you. But to an extent, though, I mean, and you gotta remember, there's pressure, and I don't mean this to be funny, because like I say it now, 8 years later, part of me was like, this don't work out. I can just go home.
wow.
You know, part of me was like, I mean, in some ways, if it got a little tense, I'm like, I don't need, you know, I might leave here and take some folk with me. You know, you get all big, you know, in that. But there was a truth to it. I was right there in my hometown. So here's the funny dynamic about my transition. And you'll be commuting from here, because Stanford still live here. Is I wasn't as immediately dependent as many preachers who pick up and move,
right,
and have to depend on housing. You know, churches don't get a job for the wife, and you don't know nobody. You know, I knew some of the people in the church before I got there. Didn't know nearly as many as you think I would, but I did know of a lot of people. So that was a different transition than most pastoral transitions. Right. You know, because I was fairly familiar. My grandparents went to that church. My great uncle was a legend in the church, Harrison Johnson. And so that was weird. But there are still feelings you feel, like you said, you pray. And so I'm going to talk about the after much prayer part.
Yeah.
I guess there were times when I didn't know what to pray for. And I don't know if you felt the same way, or I didn't know if my prayers were correct, or if I was praying for the right thing, or if my heart was in the right place. I would often question myself, like, am I just praying what I want? Am I just praying my present frustrations? Am I just praying in the light of opportunity? You know, what should I desire here? How do you pray for that? And what's my sign?
I don't know if, you know, and it's very difficult. It comes to a point, you know, I was fortunate, and I want to talk about this because I think a lot of people don't know. You know, I made the decision, when I started thinking about it, I talked to several of the leaders of the church, you know, those who held weight. And I let them know that, you know, there is a possibility, there is a chance. And I think that's something that, you know, one of the things I learned, at least from my last church, is that, you know, at least having that conversation with a couple people. You know, you ain't got to let the whole church know, because now it's, you know, speculations, rumors going to come up.
Right.
But just having that quick conversation, letting them know, I went to Florida for a weekend, you know, got away, prayed. And I don't know if that, you know, if I ever got
the sign
that,
right,
you know,
tree didn't start blowing in the wind behind you.
Right.
And,
I talked to my spiritual fathers, Bishop Paramore. I talked to Elder Carter. I talked with you. You know what I mean? I talked to a couple people about it. I'm
like the spiritual father from Don't Be a Menace. I'm like younger than my spiritual son. Come here, little guy. Oh, I'm sorry. Keep going.
What you think?
What you
think you gonna do?
Right.
Nah, but you talk to people and you have to come up with outweigh. You have to weigh some things out, and and for me it comes down to what is better. First of all, for my family. For my family, what is God showing me? What's better for my family? How is this going to affect my children? How is it going to affect my wife? There's so many.
And how does it match your ministry and what you desire?
Absolutely.
Right.
What is the end game here?
Mm-hmm.
What is going to happen? How is this? How is this transition going to affect me right now, and how is it going to affect me in the future? And you have to look at what the church has to offer. Where is it going? You know what I mean?
How's it going to affect action? Elder Carter is not going to let action go. That's the most important. She was like, forget Grayson. How will this affect action?
Stanford still working for action.
Stanford is still works for action.
Absolutely. So if this don't work out, I
got some action.
Yeah, I still got some action. But it takes a lot. It takes a lot. And the hardest thing is when you do have that unction. Mm-hmm. When you do have that unction, and you do have to finally come before the congregation and tell the congregation and then and I'm still confused about this, because you want to give them time. You want to give them I'm hereby resigning from this day. I'm going to give 30 days or something. So then those 30 days become tumultuous.
Yeah, man.
Those 30 days that you still have to preach, knowing that, especially the church, knowing you're going somewhere else, wondering if they even want you there.
Right.
Wondering if they, listen to what you're saying, or that they'll, amens go to
Right.
It's a reality.
Right. You got to watch what you say, how you carry yourself, what you portray. You don't want it to be said that you were throwing out any hidden messages or throwing shade on your way out the door. That kind of thing.
Absolutely.
And that time period can be very. Grover asked our Deacon Willoughby. He asked, what did your gut tell you? One of my things was I came to the conclusion that what was happening was, number one, something I had been envisioning and didn't know why or how. And the biggest thing for me personally, and obviously this place that I'm in now, just in life period, is like, how do you have these visions without feeling arrogant, or because you're saying that I've got some other place and other things that God wants me to do beyond where I'm at. Am I ungrateful for where I'm at? Am I abandoning where I'm at? But it turns out that the stuff I was seeing wasn't that grandiose. It was exactly what God wanted. When I say to a T, I'm talking about I could pull those journals out and show them to you. I used to journal on Google, private blog they used to have, and journal out my thoughts. And I said, I see myself being the pastor of Second Baptist Church. And I could see myself in this hybrid situation where I was both this institutional, traditional preacher with a robe on, and at the same time, this down-to-earth, like T-shirt and jeans guy. I even saw myself having two services. I had a dream about it. Like your anthems and choirs service, and then your more agape-ish services, like just having that in the same space. And it's, for some sense, happened. But the one thing I'll say is it didn't make natural sense. So I had to assume it was a spiritual move.
Wow.
I was not a Baptist minister. I came from at least at the time, and I think we've kind of recaptured my dad definitely in the servant that he is and has come to be respected as, because he spent so much time under the radar for such a long time. People are coming to respect the man that he is. Mm-hmm. And then I think I have something to do with tying back to the legacy of my family. I think some folk forgot about with my great grandfather and the whole Main Street Church of God, York story. But at the time, I didn't come from some high pedigree. There were churches that were still hitting or had been hitting, and big families and names floating around and people doing things. And we weren't it. Agape wasn't it, but then we became it. And then you end up getting approached or just having this engagement with another church that's nothing like yours. Don't have the degrees, to the extent that they normally would have had from some people. Don't have the whoop today was Baptist. The whoop, the walk, the pews, all that. That was Baptist. Y'all got me. Y'all, I've been fully infected. It didn't make natural sense. Who leaves their father's church? Who leaves a growing church? I took a bit of a pay cut, by the way. People don't know that. I took a bit of a pay cut because I was working for the state, getting a decent little salary from my church. And within a year, when I did decide to go full time and ran for office and lost and went full time, that was a bit of a drop. But I knew it was God. And so that's what I say to myself is, if this is not something that I could arrange for myself, because I'm pretty smart.
You had to be rebaptized, didn't you?
I did. We did. It's funny because I just found
nigga, you ain't
video.
Baptist. you going back under the water.
That was a conversation. Because they were like, well, he's not Baptist. And I'm like, I've been baptized, I'm saved, whatever. But if my wife and I I hope she's not watching. We had it out. And she was like, oh, no, I'm saved. You're going to tell me I ain't saved. I'm speaking tongues, everything else. I'm more saved than they are.
We're like, yes, sir. You went, take me to the water.
All that. Put on a white robe. I never wore a white robe in my life. But
oh my goodness.
I saw it as they were accepting me from an unfamiliar place. The most historic, the most institutional, most traditional Baptist church in the city was taking this guy on who is known for preaching in his church with a doggone living room set on the pulpit. I was preaching from ladders. The stuff he was doing. I'm like, what made y'all call me, first of all?
Putting wheels on podiums.
Yeah, putting podiums on wheels, just rolling away from me while I'm preaching. So I'm like, this must be God. And it was, and it is. And so that was a way of honor that there is an exchange happening. They're stepping into unfamiliar territory, and God must be in that.
Amen.
God must be in that. So when we talk about baptism and things like that, so what is it for me? What is it? Right, I'm saved twice over, in case y'all don't know. I'm saved in two different, contexts. But what is it for me not to undergo that, if for nothing else, than to honor and show respect and show true connection and covenant with the church I'm coming into, understanding that this is a very unique situation and there is no requirement, there's no biblical requirement, ain't even no Baptist, wasn't no bylaw that said that had to happen. There was no rule book that said it had to happen. Right. It was requested and brought up as a conversation that we feel that this would be a necessary way. And maybe in a way, because you've heard me talk about, if you're going to join in with a fellowship or denomination or something, make sure you agree with it. Absolutely. It's not just an opportunity and I'm going to come in there and go, Jesus, to be something else completely, especially right off the rip. So it shows that I am genuinely embracing the church as it is. Right. And I've had to tell people now, 8 years down the line, lots of people have come, and all that, and, new energy, new people, and that's great. I said, but the pastorate I accepted were the people who were here in 2015. The church that was having church the way it was having in 2015. Right. The hymns we were singing, the anthems we were singing, that's the church I accepted the call to. Whatever we become together on a journey is one thing.
Absolutely.
But don't ever think that I became the pastor of the church of 2023. I became the pastor of the Second Baptist of 2015, and whatever and whoever that engaged and involved and entailed.
I love that.
And so I keep that in my mind. And so to me, it was a small thing, and I'm grateful that I did it. I am. I just came across the photos a couple weeks ago in November, because it was in November, and Simon came and preached, baptized us. We did, I think, communion or something together, and wow. It was meaningful.
It was.
It was meaningful.
And I am grateful at this point. This, again, like yourself, this is the oldest, from what I'm told, the oldest historical Black Baptist church in Steubenville, right downtown Steubenville, 132 years old. They just had their 132nd
got us beat,
anniversary.
Doc.
And it is
Y'all got slave bones out of that church. Lord, Harriet Tubman was in the choir.
and so I am very grateful for, what God has done. And I think though
Scott. He says, now you have 2 years of sermons to recycle. Okay, can I tell you what I did in my transition? I took because I used to do sermon graphics for all my sermons at Agape. Before I gave that page up, I took all them sermon graphics down.
Took
Y'all ain't gonna say I preached this twice. It's new to you. But you were saying that you appreciate that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And so what I want to kind of, I had somewhere to go and I kind of lost it right there.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it. But, speaking of family, how has your family handled this and how do they feel about it?
I think my family has handled it as gracious as any other transition I've ever been. Today was, because today was my first actual Sunday there. So, I'm like, my wife. Oh, yeah. My wife, we went to your church. Right. My wife would get to church at, if church started at 11, she there about 12:15. Her mother came about 12:30.
She came at benediction.
and so, today, because obviously she can't drive sepathey. So, I'm like, all right, we got to get up at this time, blase. Brother, we got to be there, Sunday school, this and that. And everybody was there. My son was in Sunday school. My wife was in Sunday school. We got stopped on our way down there.
No.
We got pulled over. It was great. I mean, the cop gave us a state highway. He gave us warning. Oh, obviously my wife, I see you dropped that pastor thing. Yes, I did. Right. I was like, this is my first day pastor.
Because if that didn't work, she was going to be like, Black Lives Matter. But they were ready for the challenge
they were ready for the challenge. And I think to see my wife growing in that capacity and to see the ladies of Second actually, involving my wife and talking with my wife and making her feel comfortable. I think she is extremely happy, and I love that. I love that. I love for her to be happy. So,
and that distance and independence, because even though I was in the same city, I was in a family church. I was in a church where these people had known me all of my life. Little Todd, that was my whole life. I'm pastoring to people that known me. But there was something to be said about going to a church where it's just me and my wife and my family, and there are no personal influences necessarily clouding the pastorate.
Right.
No personal influences. I obviously started with my mom and dad, not to say that they're bad because they exist, but that's just something. And it's not them most of the time. It was the people.
Right.
I remember Pastor George, I'm still going, just a little tension with who to go to, who to talk to, who's got the final word, all this kind of stuff. But, which didn't come up a whole lot, but there was something about just being on your own. And again, you get to be in a space where I get to know a whole new group of people on their terms. These aren't any people that I have any previous experience or interaction with. I just get to meet them, a whole new city, quite frankly.
Right.
And they get to meet me for who I am, and I get to meet them for who they are. And part of this is we only know who we met.
Right.
We only know who we met. And so that plays a big part. I think that being a second helped my wife grow immensely. And what it means to be a first lady, because quite frankly, they had a little bit more first lady and pastoral official expectations that we needed to grow into. So that was good. A little bit more protocol, a little bit more expectations, a little bit more. You got to represent the church at this function. You got to be at this. You got to go to the district, this or that. And you kind of need a little bit of that. It grows you up.
Absolutely.
It grows you up. So I worry where transitions are going now. Because we live in such a time where we cannot fathom how pastors found churches or churches found pastors. I know that some of them would go to denominational meetings or put out notice to the circle of churches they might know that they're seeking a pastor, or ask some prominent preachers they're in relationship, they're seeking a pastor and pastors.
It's all over.
Well, but that's the thing is, you would have to go and show up to that church, listen to that pastor. They would send the deacon to go listen to that pastor and come back with a report, which now you got to trust that deacon, I guess, or, the few people that went and heard them, if they don't know him. I don't know how it was done in the 80s or the 70s, but I do know now, you just get on Facebook.
That's it.
You just get on Facebook and you like this preacher or not. You like their style, you like their flow, the groove or whatever. And how, again, I'm in a whole new world. So I know a bunch of Baptist preachers, young Baptist preachers. A bunch of young Baptist preachers got opportunities or are moving around or wish they had opportunities or whatever.
Absolutely.
And so this is the last, it took a couple years, but the last 6 years of my life or so have been my first time with people just floating opportunities everywhere. Hey, Doc, did you hear there's a church in Oklahoma? Hey, Doc, just people you just run into, you got a relationship with them now. And because again, that wasn't part of my world at all. And then you have that, and let's end on this, where people sense that transition can be coming, they just think it. They just think it.
Yeah.
They make frustration so long, you hear some things, man, you can't stick around here too long. Just that kind of talk,
Right.
And it's like, it makes it awkward.
Right.
Because folk will start saying stuff, often with lacking wisdom and discretion, and just throwing stuff out there that plants seeds of doubt and puts people in awkward positions and just says things. I mean, my realtor, bless his soul, who's a dear family friend, Fernanda, thank you. Now we have the pastor transfer portal. If God ever moves me, I'm going to get up and say, I'm entering the portal.
Transfer portal.
I'm entering the transfer portal. But you're right, Fernando. But
That's funny.
But my realtor, Bert Johnson, he sold us our house on Coit. He made it explicitly clear that he wanted to sell me a house that would make me never want to leave Warren in second.
Wow.
This 5 years ago.
Wow.
Because on his mind, you're a great young man, and I'm sure people would say stuff like that. I'm sure people calling you, people say stuff all the time now. I know they looking at you. And like, who is that?
Who are they?
Who are they? But yeah, I do live in this world. It exists.
It does.
It exists. You go to National Baptist website, there's a whole pastoral opportunities website. People will put it up. And truth be told, if I died tomorrow, y'all got sick of me, y'all had that sucker up too. But I'm saying his hopes and dreams are that I'm gonna get you this house. You got an office. You have an office space. You have it. You never go. You will be with us for the next 30 years. I'm like, And then other people say stuff like anticipating things like, well, you've done so much. What else can you do? It's scary. And then it like almost messes up what God wants to do with you now because people are so worried about the future.
Right.
And so sometimes you can be in a place where like, I don't know how many times I got to preach Matthew 6 to you, but take no thought for tomorrow.
That's it.
Take no thought for tomorrow. Then they try to pin you. So you're not going to leave, right? I'm like, I don't know. I mean, it would be my desire if God so says so. But people like try to pin you down. Like, yo, you going to pull this out later? You going to play a recording at a meeting later and say, you said, because you really don't know. And again, there are a group of pastors out there that would probably jump at whatever jumps at them. But there are a lot of us that have said way more no's, that if that yes ever came out, it would mean something. Yeah. And so don't think that I ain't got the text or the hint from a friend or this or that from some other state or, bro, there's a church right by me down here, and it's jumping over here. People talk.
Absolutely.
People talk.
Well, I did remember what I want to talk about real quick. Mm-hmm. The one thing that I would say is that oftentimes, especially when you leave, when you transition, you don't transition without a hope and a love for that last church you were at.
Right.
That you want somebody there that, you know what I mean? And I was so grateful when you transitioned from Agape and, the whole, even though it didn't work out the way I wanted to work out, that you were trying to get me in. When I transitioned from Beulah, I was like, I really want somebody,
right.
Whether, regardless of who it was, because you've built something at this ministry.
Oh, and you care about what you built, by the way.
Yeah, you care that, you want it to continue
Flourish.
going on. You want
It's not as good as when I was there, but just a piece.
And even now, and you say, and I know it's difficult for that church to accept help from the one who just left. It has to be. I can't even imagine it. It's not. Why would you want to help?
But if you got a good one, you better take it because they know what they're talking about.
You just listen. I know what happened when I was here over these last several years. I know who may be a good fit, who may not be a good fit, and I thank God that is literally the reason I'm at second right now, is because Bonner, who was there, called me and was like, listen, bruh, this is a great, great
fit for you.
Great fit for you. I know where you're at, but I know this would be, and
that's a practical part of the conversation.
I understood his heart,
right?
And I have preached down there for him a couple of times before, and so I had already knew the church, and obviously, like you said, I'm watching this process take place, and I'm watching, the literal guy who I'm up against has degrees.
Pedigree.
When I listen to his resume, I'm like, dude, I want to go to your church.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Like I voted for him.
but I'm so thankful and grateful. But you do. You want and for the whatever ministry to almost reject the help that you're trying to give, it's a very hurtful thing.
We can have a whole nother show about that because it breaks your heart to see people not flourish when you could have helped them if they would have accepted your help and guidance.
Right.
To see a church regress. And sometimes not even admit it.
Right.
But regress. That's not be most that's why most old Baptist preachers will make recommendations to the board who they think will take the church farther. And you have to admit, and honestly, it's almost like the toxic relationship some parents have with children. They're usually moms with daughters for some strange reason. And I mean, like in toxic relationships, is there are preachers who don't want it to be as good as it was when they were there.
Oh, yeah.
And then there are some preachers who want to say they were responsible for it going further. Now, I know my predecessor. And I love him dearly. Doc Hearns, is proud as a peacock when he comes in second. At first, he was like, how did they let you do this stuff? Because after a while, I started changing stuff. And he came in to the funeral. We had a funeral last week, and he came in and said, I see a lot of work being done. I see you got a whole lot going on. I'm proud of, he gave me a little, little seal of approval. And I did ask my because I've had conversations. It might as well be, it's religiously incorrect. Transition conversations happen. Absolutely. I was asking my mentor, my bishop, I said, well, how do you deal with that? The feeling of leaving and lost and how people will treat you. And he said, I had to remind people when I do, and I watched him do it at York. Mm-hmm. He said, wherever life takes me or takes you, he says, you have to make sure that they know that if by chance the Potter's House called Pastor Johnson tomorrow, that you are only qualified and able to go to the Potter's House because of what Second and Agape did for you. Yes. If that would have happened. He said, and you take it wherever you go. He says, so he's preached at the Potter's House. He's preached for Bishop Blake. Right. He's preached at the Kojic Convocation. And he says, every time they announce my biography, they mention that I was the pastor of York Avenue Church in Warren, Ohio, at the Potter's House in Dallas, Texas. And the Potter's House in Dallas, Texas would never have heard of York Avenue Church of God in Warren, Ohio, if Bishop Timothy Clark didn't come out of there, transcend further, and then take that name and that story with him.
Wow.
That's major.
And unfortunately, I'm sure a lot of pastors don't do that, but I'm super grateful I've got a pastor that taught me even how to honor the difficult feelings I had about the church. When my family church, it was difficult. It was tough. Felt some kind of way. People felt some kind of way. Taught me how to honor the people that made me who I am. So no matter where I go to Lock Carey, I go to these conventions, I go preach these big church. Agape is going with me. My bio will never not say Agape Assembly Church in Warren, Ohio. Mm-hmm. And if you want to figure out how I got the second, I don't know. It's just God. Whenever you see these jumps, but they had a big part of that. So I just love, and I would say, to be honest, some of these churches need to be reaching out to those of us that have been through transitions. We can start a whole consulting firm. Bruh, we might need to just put some cards out there because a lot of churches are still lost. And if a pastor passes away or dies or retires or gets put out or whatever, however it happens, he gets reassigned, that church does not know where to begin, honestly. You might have a form or something of what was done before, or some person that might give you a piece of paper and say, follow these steps. But we really need to establish a guidance mechanism for churches. And now these bigger churches have these firms, basically church headhunter firms, where they will help them. But there's nothing like going through it.
Oh, my God.
Nothing like going through it. And I've been through it. I can say at 41 years old, I've been through a serious transition that I would gratefully and gladly help any way that I'm qualified and knowledgeable of somebody else going through what it's going through. But I appreciate your candor.
And there's nothing like going through it and actually coming out winning.
Whoa.
I haven't been on the losing end yet.
You know what? And I appreciate all you've been through, far more colorful. You have a far more colorful
I haven't been through where I've tried and I've been up against some great people.
Yeah.
And so I'm thankful that, somehow every time I've made these transition, I've ended up getting the pastorate.
I should talk to somebody that's like put up for a bunch of pastorates and didn't get none of them.
I know a couple people.
Hey, Jeff, I have a question for you. Y'all silly.
How many churches you going to apply to, Doc?
Hey, Jeff, have you ever met or had a conversation with one of the pastors you were in the running with?
Yes.
How'd that conversation go?
The funny
that's
thing,
where I'm going
the
with
funniest thing was, particularly when I was at Beulah, I'm sitting there, and the last day, we all 5 of us had to come out and preach.
Wow.
We had a time, and the church was there all day. So from 12 to 1, it was somebody's turn. From this time to this time.
All of y'all?
All of us.
Wow.
In the same day. I mean, we had preached.
That's ridiculous.
Week after week. But this day, they wanted to hear one more thing. Then after we preached, the church actually got to ask us questions.
Did y'all have a hoop off?
Basically. But the funny thing is, I didn't go to nobody else's. Mm-hmm. But I get up to preach.
And they all came to yours?
And it was only one of them.
He came to yours?
And he's sitting there looking at me like.
He's me mucking you.
My wife asked Tiffany was like, why is he doing this? Why is he here? And it actually made me preach harder.
Right.
I mean, I didn't have a conversation with him, but I'm like, dude, why are you here?
Right. They should have had a rule against that. They should have checked
They should have checked it.
How you going to come and mean mug another preacher?
I mean, he was mean mugging me. I was like, dang, dude.
I had a hint of who I might be against. I just had a hint. And I knew I was up against some traditional Baptist preachers that were already known Baptist preachers. But I did have a funny experience when I was accepted to the church. And I had got access to the church Facebook page. And one of the candidates had sent an inbox to the church, like, did you get my resume? Just following up with you. And I was like, delete.
You hear that, Grover?
I was like, delete, it's over. The door's shut. God shut the door. But funny because we're Facebook friends now.
Oh my God.
Yes. We're Facebook friends. But honestly, I did ask one time and they said no. I was nosy. I was like, so who else applied? I wanted to, who else? And Grove did. I got to give it to Willoughby. He did not. I was like, let me see the rest of them resumes.
Well, because I'm watching these people because we had to preach, once a month or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I'm watching these people. And I'm watching the guy, and when it came down to me and the last guy, and the Deacon Murray got up and he was like, well, whether you get it or not, you still, we love you and we're gonna have you back. Matter of fact, I'm gonna have you back to preach for my birthday. I'm like, yeah, that's not. No, you're right. That's not gonna happen.
I will not have a competition up in here. That's not gonna happen. Yeah, man. So it's been some experiences, man. It's something to say, but it's it is something very special to the church because it doesn't happen often. It shouldn't happen often.
Right, hopefully.
But, there's just so much that goes into this. And the smart churches don't go live when they have a candidate.
Right.
Smart churches should not go live the Sunday they have a candidate. I've watched churches put up a message. We will not be live streaming this week.
I didn't think about that.
And some of them put up, we are not live streaming this week because we are having a candidate Sunday.
Wow.
So that's a smart way of trying to diminish that whole effect. But it's just interesting, man. And I'm sure I have a lot of pastoral peers out there. I started talking. I got one pastor friend. He's in Florida now. Man, when the church found out that he was a candidate for another church, they had a parsonage situation. They cut his utilities off. Ooh. And it's funny because they started with like not important stuff like internet, cable. Next thing you know, it was like lights, water. But it was just such a toxic situation. So it doesn't always go well.
And just in that, I am extremely grateful for Progressive, the way they've handled it, the way they've, even with the parsonage, even, they told me, he said, we're going to give you to this time. If you need more time, just let us know.
Right.
Everybody has, at least in person, been very cordial and gracious.
We cut you out behind your back.
Right.
Yeah.
I believe that.
That's how it goes. That's how it goes.
Hey, now, since both of you guys are pastors of Second Baptist, we're going to need some nicknames to distinguish which one we're talking about.
The Veil and the House of Hope.
Oh, yes. The Veil. Okay.
Yeah, you got the Veil and the House of Hope. And then, one day we'll have a battle royal. And, you bring your best deacons, I'll bring mine. And we'll see how this flows. But yeah, there's
can't nobody beat Grover.
Yeah, Grove.
Grover is the deacon of all deacons.
The deacons of all
That's that dude right there.
He's that dude.
Walk the catwalk, doc. I got a new piece. Got a new piece. No, but we love y'all for watching. We appreciate you. Hope you enjoyed it. With a little bit longer conversation, but it was a great conversation. I think we really peeled back some layers
Great episode.
on this.
And please check us out if you want to help hire our firm to help you transition.
Dress off.
The deacon dress off.
Well, hey, Deacon Tony was trying to have one with Grover for a while. Deacon was like, man, I'm gonna go to Detroit. I'm gonna give you some gators with the eyeballs in them, and Deacon Tony was heated, boy. You want to show Grove something. Grove outlasted him.
Grove outlasted because Grove gonna go too, boy.
Real quick.
Yeah.
We are looking to do a show on the church ushering ministry.
Oh, we need a good church
So
usher.
if you guys know a good usher,
The greatest usher ever.
Right. Hit us up. Let us know. Inbox us. Tag them.
I got the greatest usher.
So that's where we want to go next.
She usher us out this whole podcast. All right, Pastor Wingfield said, "Where's the bell? Show the bell one more time. We got to celebrate our man for beating the devil and winning the championship belt one more time. There it is.
I am the greatest.
The next
I float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. I'm so fast I can turn off the light and be in bed before it get dark. You ain't no match for me."
He defeated the devil and won a belt. Hey, y'all, thank you for watching Religiously Incorrect Sunday night service. We'll see you next time. God bless.
Peace.